accident, you know it's no walk in the park. Car repairs, medical bills, and lost time from work all add up. And if the insurance company isn't paying their fair share, you have to cover the rest, even if it wasn't your fault. That's why you need an advocate. Call us today, and we'll do everything we can to get you moving again. Come on.
You deserve clear, risk-free advice to help get you back on your feet. You deserve an advocate.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, The Monty Show, live on your YouTube machine. As always, we are presented by The Advocates at theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business, The Advocates, where you get clear, risk-free advice, because The Advocates understand that when you've been in an accident, it's one of the worst days of your life. You don't need, hey, scratch me a check and I'll give you some help. No, friends. The Advocates never ask you to reach into your pocket. In fact, you don't pay The Advocates unless and until they win your case. Get to theadvocates.com and chat with an injury attorney live online 24/7, 365 at theadvocates.com. Jake and I have been having a meaningful, deep-seated, soulful conversation about Oregon head football coach Dan Lanning. And I've been asking for 2 days now, and nobody seems to have the answer. What is the brilliance of Dan Lanning having 12 guys on the field with 10 seconds to go? And if you didn't see it, Oregon, Ohio State, well, apparently you did see it, because apparently everybody saw it. Yeah. The ratings were massive for
10 million views
for Oregon, Ohio State.
Yeah, big time football.
They're coming down with an opportunity to kick a field goal to win the game. There's 10 seconds left. And Oregon puts a 12th man on the field. Ooh, it's intentional. Man, Dan Lanning is brilliant. He's amazing. Dan Lanning's my hero. What impact did that have on the game? It had one impact. And that is, you had triple coverage on one of the best wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That ultimately, I think that's the impact. For one snap. And I don't understand, how is that brilliant? How is that amazing? How is that groundbreaking? I don't get it. And I don't understand today, why is everybody lauding Dan Lanning as just, I mean, wow. Jake, I've never seen, we have seen people do that before. And I just don't think it's amazing. I think we've even talked about this on the show. If you intentionally take a penalty with under a minute left in the game, I believe it should be a 15-yard penalty. There's no doubt in my mind that you have to legislate that out of the game.
Well, I think it's hard to prove in the moment whether it was intentional or not live in the game. But what I do think is that when you have too many men on the field, it's got to be more of a penalty than
under a minute left.
Yeah.
When you take a penalty, especially on defense, it needs to be much more severe. I think that's a 5-yard penalty. You need to put the time back on the clock, and you need to either have it be an automatic. See, at that point, though, making it an automatic first down doesn't matter.
Right.
Because there's under 10 seconds to go.
The play initiated on the 43 and finished at the 38, I think it was. And then when Will Howard ran the game out there, I think he was sitting on like the 33-yard line or something.
So if it's a 10-yard penalty, you go from the 43 to the 33.
Yeah.
And now you're probably kicking a field goal.
Yeah. You're not running the last play.
And you probably are not getting Dan Lanning intentionally putting an extra man on the field. I mean, to me, it's not genius. I've never understood
people
this.
People are saying that it's genius because it put Ohio State in a position where So when you ran the 12th guy on the field, it allowed you to double cover Smith and then also have one-on-one with everyone else, right? Obviously 12 guys on the field. And so you were preventing the big play by playing man over, which, to your point, by the way, was all night on Smith. That wasn't something new, but you were playing man over on Smith there. And then, so you prevent the big play, and you also ran off 4 seconds of game clock. So that's why people thought it was brilliant.
But it's not like the play prevented, because they never even looked at. Will never looked over there. Will Howard never looked over there. So my point is this. It's another Ryan Day disaster. That's what that play is. It's not brilliance out of Oregon or Dan Lanning. It's Ryan Day's football team not being prepared for a route. And I have to believe that they practiced that. I don't know a football coach in my 20 years of covering the NFL and college football. I don't know a football coach who doesn't practice that exact scenario. And I understand it was not a designed run to have Will Howard go down the middle of the field. I totally understand that. You didn't have a go-to route combination. You didn't have a formation set up to get you a 10-yard out pattern. You need a double move, or you need the pick play to get a guy open. A rub route, whatever you want to call it. This was not Dan Lanning brilliance. And I'm sick and tired of hearing about how great Oregon was in that game. With all due respect, Ohio State lost the football game. Poor execution really all night long, if we're being totally honest. And I just think if that game is, if we look at it dollars to donuts in detail, I don't believe that Oregon was overwhelmingly a better football team than Ohio State.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't think they were overwhelmingly better.
But that's what we're hearing, is that Oregon now is a better football team than Ohio State. And I'm sorry to tell you that's not the case. That's it. In my opinion, did Dan Lanning and his staff do a better job than Ryan Day and his staff? Yes, absolutely they did. Were they more prepared in their 2-minute and their 1-minute situational football? Yes, no question. It's always been a Ryan Day issue. And it didn't get better by adding Chip Kelly. It did not. That's where this game was won. You have in my opinion, you have a guy in Ryan Day who continues to tell you what he's not capable of doing in clutch moments. You got blown out in a national championship game against Alabama all those years ago now. Because what is this, his 8th year at Ohio State?
Something like that.
Was that 5 years ago now? This football program has sputtered under Ryan Day. You want to have that conversation, I'm here for it. What I'm not here for is how brilliant Dan Lanning is for either cheating and putting an extra man on the field and burning 4 seconds. What impact did that have on the last play? The confusion that people have is people think that it was a live, the clock was running. The clock was not running. The clock was stopped at 6 seconds. You were not prepared to run a play that would put you in field goal range and would take 4 seconds. You weren't prepared. You weren't ready. That's what this game came down to. And it happened all game long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I that's how I feel about it.
I think that you're a little burned out on Dan Lanning, number one. I think number two,
I'm burned out on Dan Lanning being brilliant. You couldn't beat Washington last year. You not once, but twice. You couldn't beat Washington last year.
Mm-hmm.
What has Dan Lanning done? And I'm asking a serious question. What has Dan Lanning done that shows you he's brilliant, game-changing, amazing, holy cow? What has he done? He got beat by Kalen DeBoer last year. So I'm not the guy that isn't. I get it. If you're an Oregon fan, absolutely kneel and bob. Totally understand it. If you're objective and unemotional about it, what has Dan Lanning done that makes him this amazing, brilliant coach?
Yeah, I guess nothing. I don't know. I mean, I think he's in the conversation every year. I mean, you know, yeah, I guess he finds himself somewhere in the middle. He's not amongst the top like 3 coaches in the country, I guess, but I definitely have him as top 10 coach in the country, certainly.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm probably just burned out. Oregon fan is a really good football fan. And I generally believe that most fans you hear from are a vocal minority. Outside of Michigan, I think Michigan fans are deplorable and on the regular are disgusting. I think the defense of that whole thing. I think you look at Ohio State fan, Oregon fan, I think you have some really strong fan bases involved at the top of the college football world. The one thing I don't understand is the unwavering love and support of Dan Lanning, especially coming off of last year.
I think it's just an opinion-based thing, man. I think I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't disagree with the fact that it didn't it was more on that last play about Ohio State versus Oregon doing something. I agree with that. But I think people's opinions are that it was an amazing, the word people were using was genius. That Dan Lanning is a genius for putting Ohio State basically in that position. It wasn't just that he saw the situation and decided to put the 12th guy on the field at the last second. Because that's the other thing that I think people aren't really talking about. Like typically in that penalty, 12 men on the field, it's usually just that you put one guy too many on the field on accident.
Which is what I think happened. I don't believe for a second
well,
that
then that's
this was
the difference.
intentional.
That's the difference then. Then that's the difference in your opinion.
I don't believe
Like,
it was intentional.
People do think it was intentional, and Dan Lanning said it was intentional.
But what else is Dan Lanning going to say? Nah, we screwed up. He's not going to say that. He's not going to say that. I don't believe you. You're right. I'm probably on Dan Lanning burnout.
Yeah.
I think the guy was too scared to take the job at Alabama. I think the guy didn't have the courage to replace Nick Saban. And I think he was unable to beat Washington. And I think he had 12 guys on the field, and it worked out in his favor. In that, I think it gave his guys a little time. I would agree the only benefit they got was it stopped Ohio State from taking a deep shot there. But are you really trying to take a deep shot there?
Well, I mean, with 10 seconds left, it would have been nice for Ohio State to be able to take, I don't know about a deep shot to like the end zone, but it would have been nice to get like a 20, 25-yard chunk play there. That's what they were looking for. And I think that was, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I'd love to hear what people think about this. I tend to lean towards, it wasn't a genius play. I think saying it was a genius play is pretty excessive. It's pretty over the top, but I do have to agree that whether we like the fact that it's only a 5-yard penalty or not is inconsequential. It's a 5-yard penalty. And Dan Lanning, if it was intentional, because I agree that's still up in the air regardless of what
nobody's given up 5 yards with 10 seconds left in the game.
So if his thought truly was, hey, I'm gonna just push a 12th guy onto the field, because that's what happened. The 12th guy, it's on the tape, you can see it. Hey, they're set. And then this 12th guy just kind of stumbles onto the field right off their sideline, obviously. So I don't know if it was intentional or not. If it was intentional, hey, cool. That strategy worked out for you. I would agree that we need to change that in college football. 12 men, needs to be a 15-yard penalty. And for those asking why it wasn't called before the snap, you're not going to call that before the snap because it's not a penalty before the snap. It's a penalty after the play starts.
Yeah.
So
I also think this was the only game of the year they had to win. I've said this all year long. Oregon has one of the easiest schedules in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if you look at the new Pac-12 members in the Big Ten, I mean, the only game you have to avoid really in the conference is Ohio State, and they wound up winning that game. Michigan is terrible this year. They're not a threat. You look at what's left on the schedule for him, it's Purdue, who's terrible. And that game is Saturday on Fox. Illinois at Michigan, Maryland at Wisconsin, and Washington. That was the only game of the year they had to win. He did his job. I'm not saying Dan Lanning's a bad football coach. I'm not going to sit here and call him a genius for having too many men on the field. So, how good do you think Oregon is?
I mean, at home, I think, they're probably the best team in the Big Ten. I mean, on the road, I don't think they're the best team. I truly believe it's that consequential. I think that Ohio State at home is probably 10 points better than Oregon, honestly. Like, I really do believe that. I think that the Ryan Day effect in big games is really hard to quantify, other than to just say they seemingly just can't win the big game. And I'm still, gonna die on the hill of, I love Will Howard, but you got to have more awareness in that situation. You got to be able to say to yourself as a quarterback, hey, there's 6 seconds left. If I don't have this out route, I got to throw this away. I can't run here. I got to throw it, because he had a window just to step up and throw it out of bounds. Like, and I don't care if that would have been a 50 or 55 yarder. You're still kicking that football, because if you don't, you're losing
you have to
the game.
try.
Yeah,
you have to try. To me, it's more about Ryan Day not being a good enough operator.
Yeah,
that's what that game is. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Oregon. I just am the hype over this. I think the biggest question coming out of this game is, what the hell is wrong with Oklahoma that Dylan Gabriel's not there anymore?
Yeah,
because I think Dylan Gabriel showed you exactly why Oregon is good. Because without Dylan Gabriel, they don't win that game, period. And I think I don't know why or how or what led to the departure of Dylan Gabriel from Norman, Oklahoma to Eugene, Oregon. But that's a huge loss for Oklahoma, who does not have a starting quarterback.
Yeah, because once again, Dylan Gabriel showed up.
Yeah.
So,
it is amazing
to run all over the place to do it either, which I thought was for him, just as a guy, as a quarterback, I thought was a huge improvement, because he had to do that against Texas last year. And to see him not have to do that and still find a way is impressive.
Yeah, and I think that there's no question in my mind that Dan Lanning and his staff outcoach Ryan Day and his staff.
Yeah.
There's just, that to me is what is left from that game, is that Oregon just has a better coaching staff. Even not executing on special teams, they still outcoached Ohio State, which is shocking to me. Yeah. That Ryan Day, with all that talent, still can't execute in big moments. All right, let's get your comments on that, because then we got to get to the Mountain West. First off, Aaron Wilson, America's favorite mailman in Lubbock, Texas. Big game for Texas Tech this week. Big game. How good is Texas Tech? Because I think it's really interesting. You look at where they are. They're third currently in the Big 12. And this game with Baylor, it is Jones AT&T. If you don't win this game, this would be a very Joey McGuire-like loss. And the defense is what worries you. Because I'm not the guy that buys into Texas Tech being one of the best teams in the conference. I don't trust Joey McGuire, and I don't trust that defense. Now, having said that, they've got a couple of games coming up. They're Baylor, at TCU, at Iowa State, Colorado, at Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. And we need to figure out what Jimmy Horn Jr. and what Travis Hunter's status is. But can you imagine that Texas Tech defense holding Shedeur Sanders under 350 yards passing? I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. How good is Texas Tech? That's a big question. That is a big question. Troy, go, Buckeyes, go. Too many games to be played left to crown Oregon. I don't think anybody's crowning Oregon. 6 soccer writers voted them number 1 in the country, which is ridiculous. I doubt Oregon can play flawless all season. Nobody can. Oregon's got a cake schedule.
But I don't think that as an Ohio State fan, you should be sitting here talking about Oregon. Talk about yourself. Talk about your program. Like, Oregon's not the reason that result happened. You're the reason the result happened.
I would agree with that. Jimmy Otson, good morning. Oregon won because Lanning outcoached Day. Simple as that. I agree. If in the last few minutes of a game you could swap Day and Howard for DeBoer and Penix, Ohio State would have won the game. Well,
Yeah. And I don't even think that it was,
I don't disagree with that. I don't think it's on Will Howard. I think it's on offense that did not give Will Howard an opportunity. I mean, the offensive line struggled in the last 4 or 5 snaps. Will Howard needed 3.5 seconds. But even if he gets that, my biggest problem is there was a lack of creativity in the route tree. I didn't like the formation. Having that bunch at the top, I hated that. I am much more of 2 and 2 with a tight end, much more of that. The offensive play call was not great, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. I wasn't a Dan Lanning fan, but seeing his wife with cancer showed a different side of him. Who cares? What has that got to do with football? I'm not talking about Dan Lanning as a human being. I don't know Dan Lanning as a human being. I'm talking about Dan Lanning, the robot that hangs himself up after every game. He's a football coach. He is a football coach. And I'm sure that comes off as incredibly insensitive. His personal life has no impact on my opinion of Dan Lanning as a football coach. None. Troy, you're on drugs, Jimmy. Lanning didn't. Oh my God. Okay, Troy, you're completely wrong.
Yeah, I just don't know how you can say
I
Lanning
disagree with
didn't
that.
Coach Ryan Day, man. I think, I think, and it's not just everyone wants to just talk about the end of the game. I thought there were multiple times during the game. I mean, I feel like, Smith had a nice night, like he did what he typically would do, but he didn't go off on Oregon. He didn't it's not like, Ohio State rolled up and just was that much better. Like I didn't see, the running back room didn't really do anything in this game. The passing attack wasn't prolific. We didn't see Will Howard bombing it down the field like we did with Dylan Gabriel. It just was...
I think they went head to head. I think they were both excellent. I thought Will Howard played a great game. I think that Will Howard should never have been put in the position that he was put in there.
Yeah, my point is not that Will played bad. My point is that the game plan didn't call for him to be bombing it down the field, which I don't understand.
The play calls on the last drive, I just don't think were very good. I don't think you put Jeremiah Smith, who I think is the best wide receiver in the country. You've got to motion him. Give him an opportunity to get off the trips, off the jab. Do something where he has the ability to run into space. You didn't give him that. You didn't give him that chance.
If you as an offensive coordinator calling those plays, Chip, if you can't identify that Oregon's playing man over, essentially zone coverage most of the night, and you can't identify that, hey, they're committed to putting 2 guys on Jeremiah the whole night, we need to go ahead and put him in a bunch and force them to make decisions. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. I don't know either. For that
reason alone, that's why I say, Dan Lanning and company outcoached Ohio State, which I can't. If he'd asked me last week, hey, who do you think is going to have the better coaching performance? I would have said Ohio State. I think, Chip Kelly's a hell of an offensive coordinator. I would have expected him to diagnose that Oregon defense, what they were showing day of in the game, and adjust his calls.
Well, it is what I said yesterday. I don't understand either side of the football. You got to move Dylan Gabriel. You got to move Dylan Gabriel. Greg Holden. It's not a 15-yard penalty, so it was a brilliant No, it was not a brilliant decision. It was not. There's no brilliance in having a 12th guy in the field. You gave up 5 yards with 10 seconds to go.
Why do you think it was, Greg? I would love to hear, seriously, why do you think it was a brilliant decision? Because this is what I need today. I ask this from you guys all the time, seemingly never get it. I need to understand, for folks who are in Greg's camp, why do you think it was a brilliant decision? What goes into that? I'm genuinely asking you.
Yeah. Because I don't understand it. Troy, is that Chip Kelly problem or a Ryan Day?
I mean, ultimately the sword falls on Ryan Day, but it is a Chip Kelly problem. In the moment, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly can work all week long to say, hey, this is This is going to be our game plan. This is how we're going to go about it. But in the moment, when those two are on the headset talking to each other, like both of them are responsible for figuring out, hey, how are we going to get Jeremiah loose? How are we going to get the running back room to get going here?
Yep.
So yes, Ryan Day is the fall guy. Make no mistake about it. But a lot of this, offensively speaking, is on Chip Kelly for sure.
And I just go back to what I said before the season. Ryan Day can't have the critical mental errors that has plagued his coaching tenure at Ohio State. And he had that in a huge moment. The only game, this is the year where Michigan is so inept and so bad. They're not competitive. They're not amongst the elites. They're not going to the college football playoff. You should beat them by 35 points. And you went and had a mental mistake that cost you the game at Oregon. That you just can't comprehend that.
It's not good enough, man.
Ryan Day, Ohio State deserves better than Ryan Day. And look at USC. USC is going to fire Lincoln Riley after the season, unless somehow they miraculously turn it around, and which now after this loss, inexplicable to Penn State.
Yeah, again, it goes right up the same alley. Awful execution late in game, awful execution on defense, tackling's a mess.
That to me is the biggest thing. All right. Real quick, Badass 377. What 8 schools do you think are joining the PAC? I've been reading online St. Mary's may join the PAC with Gonzaga. St. Mary's and Gonzaga are irrelevant because they don't play football. So you need 8. Essentially, you need 8 full share football members.
Gonzaga.
And right now, there's not a clear path for the Pac-12 in that scenario. There's not. And the toughest part about this expansion question continues to be where does the Pac-12 go? Because with the news overnight, that again, if you've listened to the show or watched the show for any amount of time, we told you several weeks ago that Hawaii was the most likely 8th full member of the Mountain West. And what did we tell you was the number one issue for Hawaii in joining the Mountain West? They did not want to pay for other people to travel to Hawaii to play not just football, because I don't know how many people know this, and we've talked about this on the show. Hawaii pays travel a stipend. They pay a percentage of the travel for the teams who come to Hawaii to compete in all of their sports, because it is expensive to fly from Boise, Idaho to Honolulu. It's expensive. So Hawaii offers a travel stipend to those teams that come to them. Well, as part of their agreement to join the Mountain West as a full share partner, meaning every sport, they no longer have to pay travel stipends to Mountain West members to come to Hawaii. So obviously this is a win for Hawaii. They now can take all of their sports, have them in one conference in the Mountain West, and they don't have to pay anybody from any conference to come to Oahu to play. This is a win for Hawaii across the board, but it's also, in my opinion, a win for the Mountain West across the board, because the Mountain West had to get to that 8th team. It applies significant pressure to the Pac-12, who is currently trying to get an agreement in principle for their media rights. And as we told you last week, we are hearing significant movement is being made in that direction by the Pac-12, but they are not going to be able to put pen to paper and finalize a TV deal before they go and add membership. So for the Pac-12, they're in this really awkward position of the chicken or the egg, right? Do we add members in hopes of getting a TV deal, or do we try and get the framework of a TV deal in hopes of adding membership? It's really a difficult position for the Pac-12 to be in. And when we talk about Pac-12 expansion, it is the only question. Can you get new membership without a TV deal in place? And can you get a TV deal without new members in place? It is really a very, I don't know if impossible is the right word, but it is a very difficult proposition to navigate if you are the Pac-12. And what now just happened with the Mountain West makes that even more difficult because it takes a lot of the pressure that was on the Mountain West. It lifts that pressure now. And now they are in, how do we get to 10 members, 10 full members before the Pac-12 can even get to 8, 9, 10. So, Jake, it feels like to me that this is a win across the board for the Mountain West.
Absolutely. I think the Mountain West has always been, in a great position to find their way back, and I think that, moving forward, now that you have 8 full share members, you're going to look to add 2 more football onlys to get to 10 members, if you will. And to find that balance in scheduling. And I think once you do that, you're golden. And I think that, with all due respect to Pac-12 fan, like you wanted to tell us that the Mountain West is nowhere near as good as the Pac-12 and they're terrible and nobody cares about all these brands you're adding and they're awful. And I'm just going to keep saying it, man. The conversation isn't whether the Mountain West is better than you or worse than you. The conversation is, are you actually going to have a conference? Because without a proper media rights deal, it's going to be really hard to add anybody. And on top of that, I look at this for the Mountain West, and this takes all the drama out of that conference. Everybody can rest easy. They can feel that sense of relief that the conference is going to move forward, that we're in a good place, that we're progressing forward, and we can operate again. We're not having to ask the question, is the conference viable? Is the conference going to burn down, or is it going to work? And so I think we can't undersell the value of that, because the Pac-12 is still right in the middle of that. You're still right in the middle of, hey, are we going to be able to make it? Are we going to get a reasonable TV deal? Like, are we, that to me is a huge difference in the two situations. And I just think if you're in the Pac-12, or if you're one of our listeners, viewers who is a hardcore Pac-12 supporter, you need to stop talking about the Mountain West now, because not only did they beat you to getting back to full viability, they're just in a different place now. They've already got a TV deal done. They've already got everything moving. They're past this sort of line in the sand of legitimacy. They're now on to just putting schedules together and stuff. You still have to get past that. Hey, we've got 8 full share members. We've got a TV deal. We're ready to go. And I think that's what people need to be focused on now.
Well, and I also think this gives the Mountain West the pathway that we've talked about. Because now you can go to NIU in Toledo and say, hey, come play football in our conference. Because they've got 8 full share members. They've got all kinds of flexibility. And I think NIU in Toledo is exactly where I would be going if I were the Mountain West. I think it makes all the sense in the world. It, without question, helps your league in a football perspective, which is what matters. Because don't forget, they just signed a huge new TV deal in the Mountain West. You have 8 full share members that start in 2026. Now you can go to NIU in Toledo and say, hey, come be on national TV in the Mountain West. Give yourself an opportunity to play for a spot in the college football playoff. And let's all go about our business of growing financially and in relevance. And let's become one of the best G5 conferences. That pathway is now clear and obvious, in my opinion, because I don't even know that there is, with UTEP in the conference, where else would you go here? I think you're going to NIU, and I think you're going to Toledo. And I know that everybody, again, crushed us when I said it a couple of weeks ago. I don't want Toledo baseball. I don't want NIU field hockey.
Right.
I want NIU and Toledo football. And if I were the Mountain West, I would offer NIU and Toledo, which I am told they have had extensive conversations about being football-only members. That's where I would go. That's what I would do. And if they do that, I think they are in a significantly better place than the Pac-12 is. And I think the Pac-12 has the opportunity, if they somehow can get a TV deal, and let's say it is the CW and Amazon Prime Sports, which we have heard repeatedly, if that is in fact the place that they go, and if those two entities will agree to make a deal without members in place, now you can go and you can compete with the AAC for their TV deal.
Right.
Now you can go to the Memphises of the world, who, again, Dr. Ed Scott, their athletic director, what did he say? He essentially said they lowballed us.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
You can go back to Memphis and say, but we're putting you on Amazon Prime Sports and you're going to be on the CW. So Jimmy, the 3-star quarterback, who wants to make sure that his mom and his grandma can watch him on TV back in Florida instead of going to Memphis. Okay, well, your mom's an Amazon Prime member. Hey, the CW has an affiliate in 7 different cities in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can make the argument.
Yeah, and I think part of that conversation too, from Memphis's side, based on the Dr. Scott, comment, was that, hey, the total valuation of the deal we were being offered wasn't enough. Not just like, hey, like, is it Amazon and CW, or like, what are the distribution partners, but also, does it give us enough money to afford the travel for Olympic sports? And because he was very bullish on that, like very adamant, like, hey, it was a bad deal for our Olympic sports. And so I think that's the other part of it for the AAC members, is it's got to make, it has to be good enough financially for them to justify it. It's not just the Amazon portion, but I do agree that the Amazon portion for recruits is highly effective. To be able to say that, and be able to sell someone on the fact that no matter where their family is, they can watch. I think that's a phenomenal talking point. But I will believe it when I see it, that the Pac-12 is able to get a TV deal north of, 10, 11 mil a year per school. I need to see that in writing.
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens. And again, I go back because every Pac-12 person in our comment section, I encourage you to go and read it. They're all on this bandwagon of, we'll get the AAC, we'll get the AAC. And as we've reported exclusively on this show, every AAC member signed a letter of understanding, an agreement that is binding, keeping them in the AAC. And if that letter is binding, which means it is essentially an enforceable contract,
right,
that says we are committing to the AAC for 2026 and beyond, who's willing to go to court and say, I want to get out of the AAC? Here's the letter I signed a month ago. Who's willing to go to court to fight that? And who's willing to pay the money to the attorneys and then the exit fees it's going to require to leave the AAC?
And again, on top of that, I also think as part of that decision, the willingness, because you have to go through that, who has the willingness to want to embrace the fact that you're traveling so much more? Like, I think that's the other hard part, is like, I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that these people, these administrators of these schools, sit around the table, talk about, damn, dude, like, a potential schedule would have us going out to the West Coast like 5-6 times. Like, yeah, we can make it work financially, but do we want to really embrace that? Is that what we want Memphis athletics to be known for? Like, is it like, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you have this piece where someone going to Memphis, like their grandma is going to be able to watch on Amazon Prime potentially if that were to happen. But are you going to go to Memphis knowing that that's your travel? Or would you rather go to a school up and down the East Coast where maybe the travel isn't as much and you can go home more often or whatever? Like, I just think that there's a lot of like opinion and emotion and feeling in it that is hard to quantify.
For how much money?
Yeah, for how much money? Exactly. So if it's only 10 or 11, like, that's
I don't
a
think
nice number.
I think you're going to be thrilled if you get 10 million per school. If you get 100 million a year, that would be remarkable. And I don't know how, if you're the Pac-12, you're going to pull that.
And I just don't know. I would agree. And I just don't know how 10 or 11, 10 mil, 100 million makes that worth it for a Memphis or, Tulane, or whoever.
Because it does not put you in a position to compete for the college football playoff.
Right.
That's the other part that you have to kind of come to terms with. And you wonder, what is the upside of joining that league? And right now, you're just sitting and waiting for their TV deal and their revenue, because that's the only thing that's gonna move the needle anywhere. is, am I going to make more money and are my students going to be healthier and more well provided for? Because you look at this letter, and I know that you guys don't want to hear this. I totally understand it because you guys lose your mind every time I talk about this.
Right.
If you're a G5 school, can you afford to compete with Texas? Because look at this letter, and I'm calling it an SOS email. Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, sent out an email where he detailed the upcoming changes. NIL remunerations, paybacks. Institutions will be permitted to directly remunerate student athletes for use of their name, image, and likeness. For institutional purposes, up to the projected annual amount of $22 to $23 million. Okay.
So right there, we've got it in writing. That's the number.
As we've reported on this show, you're looking, and let's just go $23 million. If that were the only amount that you had to kick in, can Fresno State, Boise State, Memphis, South Florida, any G5 team,
San Diego State,
NIU, Toledo, UTEP, can any of them be like, yeah, let's kick in another $23 million to football, to basketball? Okay. Roster limits and scholarships. NCAA rules no longer will designate sport-by-sport scholarship limits. That means that you will not only pay athletes more money, like cutting them a check.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to give out more scholarships. Oh, do tell. Is that not the only amount of those? Wait, there's more? Oh, that's right. The back payments. The NCAA Division I student athlete will compete from 26 to 21 and did not have, or 2016 to 2021 and did not have NIL ability due to previous rules. For NIL back damages, the NCAA national office is set to pay nearly $3 billion.
But Monty, I thought the NCAA was its own body.
Well, somebody forgot to tell everyone across the country, apparently, that the NCAA is made up of its members, like Texas and all the G5s. Look at that bottom line. Texas athletics will receive an ongoing reduction in NCAA annual revenue of approximately $1.5 million per year for the next 10 years to cover our portion of these damages. That's interesting.
So wait, I just want to make sure I'm hearing this right for all the people in the back. The amount of money you're getting is going down, but your costs are going way up. Just want to make sure we're on the same page here.
So not only are you going to revenue share to $23 million, look at that last number. And you guys all told me I didn't know what I was talking about. When I told you just the new fees are going to push you close to $50 million extra and just to compete.
Better send those refunds.
The anticipated annual new NIL and scholarship benefits available to student athletes are expected to rise on a year-to-year basis, with the potential cost for additional scholarships estimated at $11.5 million. So $15 million, $11.5 million. So if you take the $15 million on a yearly amortized number, so $11.5 million and $1.5 million is $13 million. If you take that and add it to the $23 million, you're at $36 million. And that's just money that you are now having to put out in addition. And I'd remind you that $1.5 million is a reduction in disbursement. You're getting $1.5 million less. And that's going to come out of your basketball distributions. How you like that, San Diego State? So the NCAA is going to distribute $1.5 million less, and they're going to take it out of your tournament shares.
So when everyone said, hey, you guys are idiots, You don't know what you're talking about with the Big 12.
Why
making
would
basketball its
Gonzaga?
own division.
Why would Gonzaga not join the Big 12, Marty?
Oh, I know why. Because Gonzaga doesn't play football, so they're paying all of this out of basketball, which means they need to win every single year, and they need to be in the tournament every single year. And ideally, they'd win like 2, 3, 4 games in the tournament every single year.
So you have this $36 million number. And now you're looking at, I know, the COVID-19 dark period. Because look at how Chris Del Conte just kind of tosses in the pandemic.
Right.
Texas Athletics, to maintain its status as a gold standard bearer within NCAA athletics, similar to what we did during COVID-19 pandemic, where we asked you for a bunch of money.
The coronavirus.
Along the way, the Longhorn Foundation will strive to set fundraising and membership milestones in our continued effort towards positively impacting the lives of UT student athletes.
Okay, so let's translate that into common man verbiage. Hey, we're gonna put out a new number in the coming days.
Yep.
Of what we have to have from a donation standpoint to maintain our stature in collegiate athletics. So, hey, we've got our sponsorship dollars, ticket sales. We've got all these things that are making us money inside the football program. But then that money there is not going to be enough to cover the gap. So now your donations in combination with this will put the pie together. So that donation piece is going to go up.
So if you're the G5, if you're Hawaii, and you've got to up your scholarship limits, you're going to travel more, and you're going to travel to further destinations. So your travel cost is going up. You've got to add this $36 million. You've got to add the human infrastructure. You've got to add all of this money. It's pushing $50 million a year just to take a snap. That's not hot dogs. That's not more malasadas you got to make and bake and sell at home games.
Yeah.
That's just $50 million to say, I don't know. Yeah, do we want to compete? That's $50 million. And then you add human cost, and then you add books, and then you add iPads, and then you add new equipment, and then you add one of the main costs, travel infrastructure. Because you got to have more buses, and you've got to have, if you are Hawaii, you can't truck your football equipment like everybody else does. You have to. So can Hawaii really compete in a power level?
Nope.
If the Super League happens, which it will. So when I ask you and I say, hey, can Boise State really compete with, forget Ohio State, can they compete with Texas? And the answer is no, they cannot. So in the eyes of what is the Mountain West doing and what is the Pac-12 doing, what I can tell you they're not doing is competing for national championships in football in the college football playoff. Because how many of their members can afford that?
Yeah, none.
And then I go back to, well, is Sac State really an option? Can Sacramento State right now push in $50 million more annually and then build new facilities and training table money? It's impossible. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. And I feel like this email, and I know I've said this a lot. This note from Chris Del Conte to his guys cutting him checks, his donors, his supporters. This is the canary in the coal mine if you're the G5.
Yeah, because,
this is the shot over the bow.
That email, if you cut through all the numbers and everything, is essentially just a plea for go find more donors. Go find more money. We're going to need it.
That's all this is. And you look at the numbers. I mean, we're looking at just a baseline, in my opinion, of $50 million.
Yeah.
And it is scary as hell.
So when we talk about private money, that's where private money comes in. That's where, hey,
man,
this settlement necessitates and expedites the Super League. And that's why, again, I guess we're doing the I told you so segment, but that's why, when people were like, oh, the Super League's dead, no, it wasn't ever going to be dead, because the Super League the Super League wasn't born just because people thought it was cool.
No.
The Super League was born out of necessity for more money to come in so these schools can pay their rent, essentially. And that's what people don't want to talk about. People want to sit here and be like, oh, well, I'm a Texas fan. I'm a V fan. I'm a Bama fan, Georgia fan. I'm a big boy college football program fan. We'll be fine. And it's like, no, dude, actually, you won't be fine. Like, the biggest of the big are having to ask donors for more money and are having to figure out, hey, how can we essentially double our revenue to make it feel like it does now? Because that's what this is. You're the best of the best here are going to essentially double their revenue and make it so that they make these fees and these, like, again, their rent, if you will, they make that cost feel smaller because they're making so much more. That's what this game is about. It's not about, hey, are we going to struggle to pay this stuff? No, they're not going to struggle because they're going to push the boundary so much with how much revenue they're going to bring into this thing.
Yes.
That I think the only question they're going to have is, hey, okay, we got all this money. How much do we get to keep?
And I just want to put this up here for you. This is Texas's finances. This is their total operating revenue by sport. Let that sink in Boise. Let this sink in any other G5 university. And if you want to pick one, I mean, knock yourself out and pick one. So if you want to go to, I don't know, like NIU is one that obviously comes to mind. Let's talk about NIU versus Texas. And can NIU, do you really believe that NIU, where you have football in 2023, their total operating revenue of $182 million
At
Texas, do you believe that NIU can compete with Texas when they're at $2,700,000? And Texas is out asking for handouts, sending out their Folger family athletic director, Chris Conte. Why do I say that? Because they're getting paid to have him sponsored. Do you really believe that in this kind of world where you have this kind of disparity, this is Northern Illinois' number right here, do you really believe that they can compete? Well, no, Monty, but are you telling me that Northern Illinois is blessed state?
Do you believe?
They have that Smurf turf up there, boy. Okay.
Homies, there's going to be no Monties on this one. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay. What do you got before I change the graphic? Wait, here's Texas's revenue again for 2023.
192 million, right?
What do you guys believe? No, 182.9 million on football.
Okay, 182.
Somebody take a wild guess. Just put a number in your head.
15 is my guess. 15.
What do you think Boise State's football operating revenue is?
Less than 20.
I'm going to say it's more than that. Well, I know it's more than that. How about 28,500,000? The supposed juggernaut that is saving the Pac-12.
Right.
You're telling me, okay, well, here's Texas, and they're $160 million in football revenue ahead of you. That's a lot of blue turf.
Dude.
I can do this all day long. Because the numbers, and again, I would just remind you, that's not even, friends, that's not even the total number of somebody like an Ohio State.
And remember, when Boise State is at 28 million, what are the numbers we just gave you in cost? That's going to be added should they choose to stay opted into this.
At a baseline, it's 36 million.
So the costs of this thing already eclipse your yearly annual revenue. You're not making that gap up.
No chance.
Like, you're having a different conversation than Texas is or Ohio State is. Like Texas and Ohio State are like, all right, so we got to add these line items to our P&L. We're now going to lower our revenue to this number, for this year. How do we get that money back? Well, you get it back through more sponsorship and private money. That's how.
Let me show you Ohio State's pie of revenue.
Jesus.
This is Ohio State's 2022-2023 number. The last number available, $279 million. That's how they make their money right there, friends. You're looking at it. Okay. Again, pick a G5. Jake, what's a G5 that you San Diego State? Like, what's a G5 that
Memphis?
You want to look at Memphis. Let's pull up Memphis. Is right there. Let's pull up Memphis. Let's talk about Memphis's numbers.
This school that, the Pac-12 is going to poach. This school that has no problem paying for travel, no problem,
Let's just look at their pie chart at Memphis. Take a long look at these numbers at Ohio State.
So 279 mil.
279.5. That's $100 million. Here's Memphis. Look at their tickets. Look at the stack. Direct institutional support is for Ohio State. It's $115,000. For Memphis, it's $15,321,000. Your subsidy. What that means is here's $15.3 million to play sports. Do you understand that? Like, look at the total revenue at Memphis, $64.3 million. You're $210 million behind Ohio State.
And look at the NCAA distribution line. Remember, that number goes down by 1.5 million.
Here's Memphis's NCAA distribution.
So right there,
you're at $900,000.
That's a problem, dude.
That's why I'm using this not to be like, oh, hey, I told you so. I'm trying to illustrate to you hyenas that we're not having a fair level conversation.
Yeah. But Monty, it's Boise State.
Who can't compete with Ohio State? Who can't compete with, pick your poison. You can't compete with it. And I just want people to understand that you're going to spend at a minimum $200 million on athletics. At a minimum, your expense will be $200 million.
Okay, well, what is just humor? What is like a mid-level Big 12 team making right now? Like, what is, Tech or like, not the best team in the Big 12, but just like,
let's look at Texas Tech. Tech.
So we looked at the low end. What's the middle? I think this is a really interesting.
So like a total revenue number.
Yeah. But what is
from a team that is not being competitive?
Yeah.
In football or basketball at the top of the conference in several years.
And remember, the is at 279.5. Just keep that in mind.
Here's Ohio State's number.
Right.
This is Ohio State's total revenue. Here's Texas Tech. $146.8 million. And notice again, NCAA distribution is $1.4 million.
So you can just delete that line off the chart.
That's gone.
See ya.
Direct institutional support, $5.7 million. Okay. Direct institutional support, $115,000. But again, here's Texas Tech, a mid-level, middle of the pack, Big 12 university.
Yeah.
How about Memphis?
So you see
Texas
the
Tech
tiers here.
Texas Tech,
Yeah.
not competing for championships. Memphis, $15.3 million in direct institutional support. $5 million. Like I'm telling, come on, man. Ticket sales, $18.2 million. Ticket sales, 8.7 million. They're $10 million better than you in ticket sales in Lubbock. This is why I'm trying to explain, folks. A middle of the table, Texas Tech in the Big 12, is dominating a G5. Arguably one of the better G5 programs.
Right.
Dominating. And there's no unwinding that watch.
Yep.
So when we talk about can they compete, man, I just don't see how you compete with that. I don't know how you compete with that.
You don't. You create your own thing for the G5.
Let's see. The Pac-12 has a substantial advantage in every metric used to establish media valuation, which explains why the top schools in the Mountain West agreed to join. John Wilner, 10-4. So I'm just asking again, and I understand who John Wilner is, and I understand that he very much supports them. But what I'm asking for is, what does that mean in practical, real dollar days? And we won't know until the Pac-12 gets a TV deal. But if my sources are right, and right now the top of the table is $10 million.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is the practical application of which explains why the top schools in the Mountain West agreed to join? They agreed to join because they bought into the dream that is the Pac-12.
Yeah. And with all due respect, I love John Wilner's work. He does a great job. John Wilner's a Pac-12 guy.
He is.
Always has been, always will be.
He is.
So when you're reading John Wilner's stuff, you got to understand the perspective he's writing from.
He is of the back of the envelope calculation interview.
Yeah. I mean,
where George Kliavkoff talked about getting $50 million
back of the envelope calculations
per year per school. And they never checked him or asked a follow-up question to it. So
I'm not sure that I agree with the assertion that the Pac-12 has a substantial advantage in every metric. If they had a substantial advantage in every metric, they'd already have a TV deal. They already would be done, and you'd already be on to adding either a C membership or like going to court and do that or whatever it was going to be.
And again, we're talking about all of this taking effect in 2026.
Yeah.
We're not talking about next season. So I think the timeline matters. Jay McClanahan, you need to make $100 million a year to play the game. Just in football.
Yeah.
Because I do think your baseline, I think it's more and more and more. Now that we know the scholarship limits went way up, you're paying 34 baseball scholarships.
Which is a lot. That's a lot.
You're paying 15 full share scholarships on basketball. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't have a good understanding of the scholarship thing, like you can be half share, quarter share. Like there's a lot of negotiating
when
that happens.
I was considering college, I was offered a 25% scholarship to play baseball at Illinois. Could not afford it. And I had a great radio job at the time. But that's how baseball scholarships work. I can tell you, and I think I've told this story on the show before. I had a friend of mine. I sold cars with him way back in the day. He was a cheerleader at Notre Dame. And he got some paltry amount of money. I mean, a tiny amount of money. And had to pay the rest. But he was a cheerleader, and he got, I don't remember what the number was now, but he got a tiny amount of money on scholarship because he was on the Notre Dame cheer squad.
Yeah.
That's how money works. And every penny counts. And I think what you're going to see now is you're still going to have walk-ons on the baseball team. But I think you are going to see the days of walk-ons in football are over. And they've been over. Like BYU has all of their walk-ons have scholarships paid by NIL.
Right.
Nobody and I think it's the same thing at Utah. Nobody pays, no football player, nobody wearing a football jersey. Practice squad, walk on, nobody is paying for a scholarship or paying their tuition at Utah or BYU.
Yeah.
NIL covers most of that. So it just tells you how expensive it's getting. It really does. Scott of Greywater Watch. The middle of the pack power conference is what I want to look at. And how much money do you need to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC? Well, what's the biggest program in the SEC? Bama, Georgia. I mean, take
we
your
looked
pick.
at Texas already.
Let's look at Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay, because Alabama in total revenue is a behemoth. And their total revenue number, what do you think? Just put a number in your head. Knowing that Texas Tech is at 146, knowing that Texas is at 279, what do you think? If you had to guess.
I mean, I'd put Bama somewhere in the, certainly not as high as the. I mean, the donor base at the is ridiculous, but maybe 2.25. You know,
how about 199 million, $913,000?
Yeah, see, that to me seems light.
And if you look at NCAA distribution, 3.2 million, because they haven't been great in basketball, right?
So that's going to get chopped in half.
Direct institutional support, 6.2 million. But look at their media rights number, $55.6 million. Media rights, zero. Media rights. Look at media rights on, Texas Tech, 25.6 million. Do you guys see how different each of these universities are? And you look at Alabama, and you see ticket sales, $41.8 million. Maybe having a massive 100,000 seat stadium matters. Donations, $48.9 million.
See, but I think that line item of licensing and ads is where you're going to see a lot of growth.
I agree.
I
would agree.
What was that? 16 million, I think, for Bama, right?
Yeah, $16.2 million.
That's got to be 30, 40 mil a year. That's got to be, you got to bump that thing
it's gotta go
way
up. It's got to go up. I totally agree with that. And it is.
I mean, the fact that Bama's under 200 is insane to me. I mean, I understand that maybe from a marketing standpoint, and some other institutions are better at it, but Bama's been dominant in football for a decade now, and you're still under 200.
You cannot afford to compete because you can't afford to join the Super League.
Yeah.
Just based on these numbers. And that's why I'm trying to paint this picture that I don't mean to pile on top of people. I'm not trying to show you guys how, and Boise fan gets uppity about this. I'm not trying to show you how small Boise is. I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you is financially, it's really difficult to compete. When you have schools like Alabama making $200 million and you have schools like Texas making $279 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying if you are a G5 right now, because I don't think you can compete. All right. Hour number 2 of the Monty Show, presented by our friends at Prize Picks. Let's talk about Prize Picks.
Uh-huh.
And I want to talk about Prize Picks because, well, frankly, I won on Prize Picks again. I'm on a heater. Monty's back on a heater, bruh.
Yeah.
I told you yesterday, these were my picks. James Cook did not play.
First time in, I think they said 3 years or something.
But it didn't hurt me because I had Josh Allen on a demon, which means it pays higher, for 1 rushing or receiving touchdown. He had 1. Aaron Rodgers to throw 1.5 touchdowns passing. He had 2. That paid me $65.
I think I've hit it every time.
Then in Major League Baseball, stupid Shohei Ohtani. I took, how close I was to $190 payout? I chose Ohtani over Juan Soto. And if I'd have taken Juan Soto, they were both 1.5 total bases.
Juan Soto went deep last night.
Sean Manaea, for 5 strikeouts, he had 6. Aaron Judge, for 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs, he had 2. It paid me $27.
Nice. See, that's the thing on Prize Picks, though. As long as you're making money, you're in a good place.
That's what I love about Prize Picks. Like why tens of millions of us know what I hope you know, which is Prize Picks is America's best daily fantasy platform. Download the Prize Picks app on your phone. Use the promo code Monty. You make a $5 deposit, they'll give you 50 more.
Yeah.
It is the single best daily fantasy promotion I've ever seen. All you have to do is download the app, use the promo code Monty. Hook it up. Prize Picks, America's favorite daily fantasy platform. Get on board. The eye patch says, go Yankees. Real quick aside, how many people are watching the Major League Baseball playoffs?
Got to tell you, haven't been real thrilled with the CS series so far. Not really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like, oh man, dude. Dodgers Mets, like I was way more into Dodgers Padres. Dodgers Mets feels like the Dodgers are dispatching that team in 5 games.
Yeah, well, unfortunately not for the Dodgers because the Mets pounded them yesterday 7-3. Mania was fantastic. Thank you for striking people out. I think that's going to be an incredibly competitive series. I think the Yankees showed up, and I know that it's guard ball, they call it in Cleveland. I think the Guardians don't have the offensive firepower, in my opinion, consistently enough. When Giancarlo Stanton is hitting home runs, the Yankees are unbeatable.
Yeah.
They're just impossible. And you look at that series and the way that it starts, you get Rodon last night, 6 innings, 3 hits, and earned run, 9 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Gives up the home run. And then you get Cobb for Cleveland, 2 2/3, 5 hits, 3 earned, 3 walks, 3 Ks. How are you going to compete with that when you have Stanton, going deep. You have Soto going deep. And you're shell-shocked at that point because you give up 3 in the 3rd, another in the 4th, another in the 7th, and you get a run in the 6th and the 8th. You never were able to build offensive momentum. I think that series is going to be tough. And if you're going to get Luke Weaver and he's going to be the back end of the bullpen for the Yankees, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
The Guardians are going to have a lot of trouble in that series. And I don't know what it will take to turn that around, but you're going to have an offensive explosion.
And Luke Weaver as a closer's been nice. He started for all those years.
Well, I think you wanted it to be Clay Holmes, but that clearly has not worked out. But isn't today a must-win for Cleveland?
Yes.
With Bybee going and Garrett Cole? This is a big moment for Garrett Cole.
Yeah. Do we get dominant Garrett Cole, or do we get 5 innings struggle bus Garrett Cole? Because he was dominant last time out.
But I don't know who your closer will be. Clay Holmes has 30 saves on the season, but it's been erratic.
Well, I think, Aaron Boone likes to use Clay Holmes as the stopper. Like, hey, it's the 5th inning, the 9th inning, the 6th inning. When I need outs, I'm going to go to him. So that's kind of been his change in role. And I think it's worked out so far. It's not ideal. I think Clay Holmes as a closer would be amazing, but it obviously just wasn't for him.
Would you hate a Mets-Yankees World Series?
No, I would not. I would prefer Dodgers-Yankees.
I think we're going to get a Mets because I don't believe Walker Buehler can bounce back in New York.
Yeah, that was a rough outing.
On Wednesday. He's got rocking a 10 ERA. So Mr. Preston says, go Mets. Chris C says, I haven't watched the MLB playoffs at all this year. I only watched regular season.
The DS round was incredible.
It was. It was. Yes, Steely, I agree. They have to win tonight. Cleveland's got to win tonight. You have to have it. Sal Capone says Dodgers-Yankees World Series. If Walker Buehler gets shelled again, I don't know how the Dodgers come back in that series because you don't have Kershaw's never been great in the postseason.
It's been their Achilles heel, dude.
They don't have great pitching.
And Dave Roberts, is not scared to run a bullpen game out there. And when they did it, they dominated. And I don't be surprised if you see that. Do not be surprised if 2 innings into that game, Walker gets pulled if he's getting slacked.
How big does Flaherty look now?
Mm-hmm. And they still struggle with starting pitching.
I think it's going to be Mets Yankees unless something dramatic. And I would love to see it for the The city of Cleveland and the state of Ohio did not have a good week.
No.
Football has not been good. The lost. The Browns lost.
And there was all this drama around the Stefanski,
Did you? Yeah. How about Kevin Stefanski yesterday? An hour late to his press conference. That guy ain't 30 seconds late to a press conference.
Yeah.
And announced no changes.
Yeah, we're not making any changes.
Deshaun Watson gives us the best opportunity to win, which I actually agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. But it's been a rough go, and then the Guardians lose. Was not a great 72 hours. Ohio State, the Browns.
But hey, the Cavs are back, right?
We'll see. Giggity, screw Ohio. What have they ever done for us? I love the dichotomy of fandom on this show. Kaner, and I hear that AJ wants $9 million to play basketball.
I don't know.
I don't know who AJ is.
Yeah.
Isaac Drost. I would rather see New York Mets, New York Yankees. Hate the Dodgers. Disappointing season for my Astros. Well, we'll never read another one of your comments.
Yeah.
Brett Gardner hitting the roof of the dugout is still amazing.
Iconic.
It was a disappointing season for my Astros this year, but it was expected. Was it? Was it expected? I don't know. Stadium guy James. I love baseball in October. Okay. I love baseball year round.
Yeah.
I don't have much to celebrate, but
yeah.
All right. Speaking of celebrating, Cam Rising done for the year at Utah. Your thoughts? Because I know this has been a thing for you.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts are, number one, the questions that the fan bases are asking, about this. Like, I think we need to go back a little bit, though. Like, yesterday was just the culmination.
Wind back the clocks.
Yeah, let's wind the clocks back all the way to the Ohio State Utah Rose Bowl game. That's where yesterday was born, because Cam Rising blew up his knee in that game and left that game. And we've been talking about injuries ever since. And yes, last year was magical, beating the hell out of USC multiple times and edging out those games and watching, all the Utah fans hate on Caleb Williams crying on the field. We all remember all that stuff. We all remember it. But yesterday, I have to say, I think Kyle Whittingham is somebody who's in a really interesting time in his career, because the guy can coach his ass off. The guy can turn 2 stars into 5 stars like nobody in the game. The problem is that the quarterback has plagued Kyle Whittingham's career. He has never had a guy that is just an absolute bona fide go-getter at quarterback. And Cam Rising was the closest thing Utah has ever had to that. And now we get to sit here and talk about, well, this season's over for Utah. And I do think at some point we need to talk about like what a losing season versus a winning season is for a college football playoff caliber football team, because a lot of people are talking about that 2 losses means with the expanded format, your season's not over. So I do think there's a conversation there, but I left yesterday with this Utah Cam Rising thing feeling like, yeah, dude, the Utah we all knew and loved, the Cinderella story, the, hey man, these guys are going to go and fight the big boys in the playoff. That's all over with now. And it's not an Isaac Wilson problem. The kid's young. He's going to grow and develop. He'll be solid. But I just feel kind of disappointed, kind of sad, kind of like, yeah, it's over. It's over. And we'll just have to see what Utah does the rest of the year. And I've been dying on the hill of, if Utah doesn't win this conference in the Big 12, the Big 12's in serious trouble. And I understand Iowa State's got a great defense and they're a great team, and respect to those guys. But when we're being honest about it, if Iowa State's the best you got coming out of your conference, that's not a great look.
I am not in agreement with you on that. I think that Iowa State's a great program. I think Matt Campbell's doing amazing stuff. I wish their offense was a little more potent. I wish that they, I wish they were more dynamic offensively.
Yeah.
If Utah does not win this conference, I think it is what it is. Like, your biggest issue is you don't have a traditional, powerful program in this conference. You don't have that. And you're looking at a renaissance at BYU. I still think K-State's a horribly flawed program.
But right now, one of your most valued programs.
And I think Iowa State, as I have said for a while, I think I would pick Iowa State versus Utah in the championship game.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get a long look at that. But as far as Cam Rising goes, it sucks. I don't know how, if you're Cam Rising, you get out of bed today.
Yeah.
Because the sadness must just be profound.
Yeah, and as far as this 8th season of eligibility, I mean, if you're Cam Rising, I'm not sure that that's the best decision for you. I mean,
not the best decision for Cam Rising?
Yeah.
Not the best decision for Utah. You have one of the top quarterback recruits in the country in Isaac Wilson ready to take over your program. And this is where college sports gets hazy and people start crying and getting misty. And Cam Rising, the human being, matters in this framework, matters far less than what's best for the football program. He's not been able to stay healthy as a football player. He is going to be fine as a human being. What's best for the Utah football program in the next 3 years? That Cam Rising, you know what's best? That Cam Rising's played his final snap at Utah. Period. Full stop. Isaac Wilson's the future of Utah football. He has been since the moment he signed. And now it's time to bring that future forward. And it's the same conversation we had about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. If you are Utah football, how can you justify having Cam Rising redshirt and coming back next year?
Yeah, you're not wrong, man. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't think that the conversation is, it's obvious what's best for Utah football. Isaac Wilson. But you're still going to be mediocre quarterback with him. He's going to take probably a season, the rest of this year, probably half of next year, to really turn into someone who can, yeah, you like him. I get it. But
I just disagree with you. I think his development has been rapid. He's a rookie quarterback who's going to make mistakes. A year ago, he was in high school.
Yeah.
He's a rookie that's going to make mistakes. You see the brilliance, though. You see the toughness. You see the running ability. You see, more importantly, you see the diagnosing a defense, getting the ball to the right guy in the right space at the right time.
I just think that you're in a place where you're just ready to be like, yep, we're done with Cam, we're on Isaac. And I think that is fine from a tactical standpoint for Utah. They don't have a choice, really. That's what they have to do. But I think not talking about the story of Cam Rising and like the fact that, why did they leave him in the game? Well, they left him in the game because they felt like at that time they're saying he was their best option. That's a load of junk. You left him in the game because you damn well knew if he left that game, he was going to be done at Utah.
It was over.
Yeah. And so I just think that this story of Cam Rising for Utah and Kyle Whittingham's career is much more than just another quarterback who couldn't stay healthy and you're moving on to the next guy. This is the best quarterback the program's ever had. And I think
I agree with that.
And Cam Rising is somebody who was on the precipice of taking you somewhere you hadn't been in a really, really long time. And for Utah, now you're going to have to rebuild that with Isaac Wilson. And I agree. For the record, I agree. In Isaac Wilson's tool bag, theoretically, he should be a better quarterback than Cam Rising ever would have been. He's more athletic, in my opinion.
Better
He's got
thrower,
a bigger arm.
Better
certainly. Thrower. I think his instincts as a quarterback, he embraces taking those shots down the field. He likes finding the window. And not to say that Cam didn't, but I just think that you, with Isaac, you see this level of explosiveness that I think you hadn't seen with Cam. So I don't think Utah's in a terrible spot. I just think when we look at the Big 12, I understand Matt Campbell and Iowa State are doing great things, but they haven't been to the Rose Bowl. They haven't been to the big game. They haven't gone deep in the playoff, right? So to me, as a conference, you need Avery Johnson now. You need K-State. You need somebody somewhere to do something other than be way mediocre and underachieve Oklahoma State. Like, at what point does somebody in the Big 12 step forward and take control of the conference? That's what I want to see.
Well, and I think the other part of this Cam Rising story that's so critical is it allows Utah offensively to get back to the full playbook. There was a lot that Cam Rising could not do. They could not run, by some estimates, 50 to 60% of their under center, scheme was gone because Cam Rising's hand injury. I mean, that's a large swath of your under center playbook that you just couldn't run. And I think the other story that's being reported that I think is really critical is two leaders emerged yesterday. When the news was given to the team, which was before it came out, the team held a players-only meeting, almost like, hey, let's talk about this so we can move on. Brant Keithy took the leadership reins yesterday. And the other guy that stood up and spoke in front of the team, and it was supposedly this really nice moment, Isaac Wilson. And what did Brant Keithy say after that meeting? Well, he's no longer a freshman. He's our starting quarterback now. And he's right. It's October. You're not a freshman anymore, right? You're not just some scrub off the bench that we haven't seen. This is a kid that's been dynamic. And so for me, I think this is exactly what's right. And what else did Brant Keithy say, the tight end at Utah? It's good for us to be able to focus on one guy and build a game plan week in and week out, knowing that's our starting quarterback.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that.
And the full playbook is available now. They don't have to cut out, a ton of plays because Cam Rising's got a hand injury.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting. And I'll continue to tell you, and I know that many people don't want to hear this, their biggest problem is not their quarterback.
Yeah. We got to talk about that defense.
Their biggest problem is that you have got to find a way to get your defense healthy. Karene Reed is such a huge loss at linebacker for them.
Yeah, I just think that the defense, I understand that Arizona State is a raggedy ass team, a team that's tough, that wants to, impose their will physically because they know they're not more talented than you. And so they did that, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But what surprises me from the defensive side of the ball is Utah's typically been that team that you're not going to be tougher than. You're not going to roll up to any field and push Utah around or beat them in the hole. And you beat them in the hole and push them around, and that was really surprising.
And I think the other guy that a lot of people don't talk about is Sione Fatu, who I think you've got to have Sione Fatu on the football field. He's young. He's a guy that's a sophomore. He went to Bingham, which is a huge football factory here.
Yeah.
If you put those two linebackers back on the field, Karene Reed and Sione Fatu, you beat Arizona State. Whether you want to live in that realm or not, I totally understand you can't.
And I don't think people understand, like, 6 foot, 225, you're a beast playing that position. You are stronger than
you're
people.
A monster.
You are able to, Scatabo is a hell of a back, and I give the kid a lot of credit. I agree with what you said yesterday about him. I thought he looked like he was about 80% at the start of the game. He certainly wasn't that at the end of the game. And I think that, I don't know. This is kind of what I mean. Like, Utah is just in this place as a program where they're not excelling at anything, and they're just going through it. And
I think Cam Rising's been a cloud hanging over the program.
Yeah. And so hopefully to your point, maybe it can be a thing that pushes them forward. Maybe, we'll find out, right? We'll find out what it is. But I just hope that people remember Cam, for the injuries, but also in a positive way for how much fight he put in, because he could have easily quit after the knee.
Yeah, and this Utah program's got to get back to being an elite defensive team. They've got to get back to being that top 5 defensive unit in the country, and right now they're not. And their biggest issue is that Arizona State pushed them around.
Yeah.
And you don't see Kyle Whittingham-led defenses get pushed around very often. And I think it's because you're missing two of your brightest stars. Now, if you get them back this week, Whit talked about it yesterday that you can get them back. I think that's a big deal, and everybody deals with injuries. Everybody deals with injuries. Kyle Whittingham yesterday said they missed 19 tackles against Arizona State. It just, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That a Utah defense would miss 19 tackles. That's wild. And their schedule is TCU at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That's a night game.
That should be a win.
Should be, right? It should be.
Yeah, but like, I understand we thought they'd beat Arizona State, but you understand we talked all about how Arizona State was a tough team that,
the Dillinghams?
The Dillinghams were going to be, you were going to have to win the physical battle there. TCU, you should beat TCU in your sleep. TCU is not a good team this year.
Well, they'll throw it on you. And Hoover can throw the ball. So we'll see. But your TCU at Houston, BYU in the Holy War on November 9th. At Colorado. I think that at Colorado game, that's a game that I don't know that you can win if this defense doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that really concerns you about Utah's defense is their inability to cover.
We show up.
At the Iowa State game at Rice-Eccles Stadium, and then you're at UCF. That is a one-loss schedule.
Yeah, looking at that schedule, I think, when we take into account the quarterback situation that we've just talked about, and then you kind of parlay that into the schedule, if you can just beat TCU in Houston here, build some momentum on both sides of the ball, and head into that next game, you should be okay. You should be okay.
The real problem is that Iowa State has a pretty easy schedule. You are home for UCF Saturday. Then you're in your bye week before you host Texas Tech on November 2nd in Ames. Then you go to Kansas, home for Cincinnati, and then you finish at Utah and home for K-State. I mean, Iowa State's going to have a hard time not being in the Big 12 championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at BYU, and I think BYU has a considerably more challenging road ahead. And I'm curious, do you guys view BYU as a Big 12 championship contender? Today, sure. Realistically, down the road, I do not. I think you're asking a lot of a football team. And again, I think it'll come down to Jake Retzloff, as we've talked about. If he's got to be significantly more accurate as a passer. If that happens, they can lose one game left on this schedule. I think this Friday night, we're going to get a real good look at who he is. Because I think you're going to have to throw the football to beat Oak State, because Oak State's going to throw the football and it's going to be explosive. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. At UCF, at Utah, Kansas, at Arizona State, and Houston.
Yeah,
that's 2 losses in my opinion.
Yeah, we're a little different on this. I think that Oklahoma State coming to Provo is going to look to stop the run, and you're going to have a lot of opportunity in the passing game. And I don't think that Alan Bowman or anything on that offense is something you should be scared of when you've played who you've played. Like, when you're able to do that to Arizona and slow those guys down like that, and then
but your offensive line at Oklahoma State's considerably better than Arizona. Your wide receivers, I think, are deeper. You did a good job against T-Mac. There's no doubt about that. Tataroa McMillan and the Fighting Fafitas obviously struggled in Provo. I think your lungs are going to bleed. We talked about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that BYU is scared of Oak State.
No.
I'm not saying that. I don't believe that that's the case. What I said was, Alan Bowman's done one thing this year, drive the ball down the field. And he's done it well. He's put up a pile of passing yards. The problem is that's all they've been able to do. They haven't been able to run the football. I think when you look at this BYU defense, I think if you are able to keep them one-dimensional, you're going to beat Oak State.
Right.
The question will be, is Jake Retzloff accurate enough to win a 42-35 kind of game? That's the question.
Do you really think that Oak State can come in at night and put up 35?
I do, because BYU, if you look at the way that Oak State I mean, it's shocking how bad defensively Oklahoma State's been.
Yeah, it is.
I don't have any doubt that BYU is going to score points. My question is, if you're BYU, what has hurt you? And what hurt you against Baylor?
Turnovers.
What keeps teams in games?
Yeah, turnovers.
And what is Oak State's ability to throw the Alan Bowman can throw the ball, but what does he do?
Yeah, I guess
turnovers.
And obviously we're going to talk all about this game as we get later in the week, but you know, I don't know what I struggle with Oklahoma State right now in this particular scenario of, hey, we're going to go to elevation at night and play BYU. I would agree Bowman can pass the ball.
Yes.
Like he's shown he can push it down the field. But what I think we've also seen out of Oklahoma State is this propensity to just seem lost.
Yes.
Like to just seem like, again, I've talked all about it this year. We've talked about it where it's like, hey, those first 15 offensive plays seem scripted and you're running the ball and you kind of have this plan, right? Like you're going to come out and we know what our first 15 are going to be. But then after that, it's like, oh, hey, like we're going way away from
we
the
don't
run.
have a plan.
We don't
We don't have.
So it's like, do I think BYU is going to have another K-State performance against Oklahoma State? No, I don't think that we're going to see that type of chaos again. But what I do think my instinct says is that Oklahoma State's going to have a lot of trouble scoring 30 points in that game at night at Lavelle. That's what But
you understand they're averaging 300 yards a game passing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that they don't pass the football well. The issue is they can't stop anybody from passing the football.
No, you're not wrong.
Oklahoma State gives up 258 yards a game passing. And what does Jake Retzloff average? Jake Retzloff averages 247 yards a game passing.
And this past week, they started running the ball. So if they're able to run the ball, which you would think that they would, I mean, Oklahoma State's going to sell out to stop the run. I can just tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can have if you can just average like 4 yards carry, BYU theoretically should have a good night. But again, not to get you lost, I look at the schedule and I say, okay, I would expect you to beat Oklahoma State. Whether it's a shootout or not, I expect you to beat Oklahoma State at home at night. I expect you to win that game. So then from Oklahoma State, what do they have? UCF, I think, after that, if memory serves.
BYU or who?
BYU, yeah.
BYU goes Oak State at home, at UCF, at Utah. I think UCF has just been so incredibly disappointing.
Yeah.
So incredibly disappointing.
So if we give them Oklahoma State, we give them UCF, Utah, that's a 50-50 game. You can't give that to BYU, especially at Utah.
And we'll have to see how Utah's defense gets healthy. I think there's a lot.
So let's say you lose the Utah game, just for argument's sake. So now you've got win, loss. You beat Kansas.
You come home for Kansas.
Yeah. You beat Kansas.
You go to Arizona State in a game that you really should be able to win.
But that, man.
The physicality up front is not an issue for BYU. Their linebackers are fast and physical.
All right, so let's say they win that game, and then you beat Houston. Your one-loss team. Hell of a year. That'll put you in the Big 12 championship game.
But that's asking a lot. And then there's Texas Tech, and I know that I've turned heel for Texas Tech fans. I understand you don't like the fact that I'm not a Joey
You don't
fan.
even watch Tech football.
But why should I believe that they're going to beat Baylor this weekend? That's going to be really interesting. At TCU, does anybody believe that TCU won't be able to score points against Texas Tech?
No. Tech's defense can be scored on.
Like I look at some of these Big 12 statistics, and I think this matters. And this is one of the things that I just will continue to ask. Like, Tech fan, you're the perfect example. Your Texas Tech fan yesterday was so pissed that I said I don't view Texas Tech as a Big 12 championship contender. You're dead last in defense. You're not middle of the pack. You're dead last in defense. You're giving up. Do you guys understand they've given up 24 touchdowns?
That's a lot, dude.
Do you understand that they're giving up 32.5 points a game? That's not like BYU's giving up 16 points a game. Championship quality defense. Right? You look at even middle of the table, K-State's giving up 3 scores a game, 21 points a game. And why do we question whether or not Texas Tech can compete for a championship? You're dead last in defense, and you're number one in offense.
Right.
You're going to score a lot, but you're going to give up a lot, and you're going to run into some defenses.
Yep.
Because you've got Baylor, TCU, Iowa State, Colorado, at Oak State, West Virginia.
That's 3 losses at least. At least.
And you can say what you want about Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
That team's a better football team. That's a really Colorado is much improved. And they should have won this past weekend had they not lost their wide receivers, but they did, so they didn't. But my point is, when you score a ton of points and you give up a ton of points, you're not winning championships.
Right.
It's a recipe for disaster. Bradley Dunkel, when's the last time Tech fielded a decent D? Not for a while.
Yeah.
And when's the last time that they were competing for conference championships?
Been a minute.
It's what I always talk about. Buffalo Hunter. Utah will stomp BYU. No, they won't.
Yeah,
No, they won't. You have no basis to say that other than you're being a red ass because it's BYU. Dev MC, Monty has a lot more faith in the Cowboy offense than I do. I think when you look at Oklahoma State, they do one thing well. They throw the ball down the field. And if you allow them to get off the bump, if you allow their wide receivers to get off at the line of scrimmage, Alan Bowman actually can hit a guy in space. That's when they get dangerous. When you allow him to hit those slants inside, now you got to get up and press, and that allows them to open up the sideline route, the boundary route. The Red Raider. I'm not that pissed. I'm excited they are where they are, but I'm also a realist that we are not that good on D.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Steely says, hey, Bradley Dunkel, how are you? Mayor McCluskey makes his appearance. Hey, everyone, BYU has the #1 pass defensive efficiency in the nation. I look at their passing. I look at BYU's defensive efficiency against the pass is #1 in the conference.
Right.
And we've talked about their strength is the secondary. And I think a guy that nobody talks about is Crew Wakely.
Yeah.
Crew Wakely has made a huge difference on the back end of that defense because he plays fast and he's an instinctual football player. Jacob Robinson, that's an NFL corner. How many times have we ever said, well, that's an NFL corner at BYU? Not a lot. Not a lot. And you look at they're better than Iowa State and Utah in pass defense, which is shocking. Shocking. Now, I wish that Jake Retzloff was more accurate. That's what we need. You need Jake Retzloff to be more accurate. And BYU has got to run the ball more often because you're 12th out of 16 in the Big 12 at running the football.
Yeah.
So, Jeremiah Sullivan, I agree. Tech has just not given me a reason to believe yet. Not yet. Geoff, one of the best things about BYU football this year is coming in with zero expectations and enjoying some seriously well-coached football. It's been a good season no matter how it ends. Okay. Now, I totally disagree with that take. The last sentence. It's been a good season no matter how it ends. If you lose every game for the rest of the year, has it been a good season? If you lose 4 games, has it been a good season? I'm going to say it hasn't. This team cannot do what BYU has always done, which is fold in the second half. And I would also point out if you lose to Utah, the season's not been successful because it is the only game of the year that matters. Because if you only win one game and it's the Utah game, you had a successful season. If you lose every game the rest of the way and you beat Utah, it's not been a successful season because now expectations are higher. So, I think it is. We'll see. iPatch is being a red ass again. iPatch, I don't know how to break it to you. BYU football right now is a better football team than Utah is. I don't think you can even make an argument to the opposite of that.
Yeah. And if you do, you're just doing it on emotion.
So the skill positions are superior across the board. The secondary at BYU is superior to BYU's or to Utah's secondary. I would defensive line and I might lean BYU defensive line. Linebackers, when they're all healthy,
But you're
I
not.
think. Well, and that's the big thing. Finally, it's not BYU that's got every dude on defense out. Right? Offensive line, it's better at BYU. Wide receivers, superior. Not close, not even a conversation.
And I just love, like, this is what happens in the state of Utah. Well, we're ranked ahead of you in total defense. Okay, cool.
Nobody
dude.
cares.
Nobody gives a damn.
How did that total defense work out the last 2
Are you
weeks?
ranked ahead with 2 losses now?
How'd
Like,
that total defense work out against Arizona State?
come on, man.
Because last time I checked, you lost at Utah to Arizona. How did BYU do against Arizona? You're being an idiot. Like, and it's why this is the issue with Utah fan. This is what you guys do. You refuse to, and BYU fan the same. It's disgusting to me that BYU fans are celebrating Cam Rising's injuries.
Yeah.
It's deplorable. It is just not what I love. No, I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, the point is, Steve Stepanek, I thought Utah was going to win the Big 12 easy. Who said that they weren't going to win the Big 12? No, you hear that silence? That's because nobody thought that Utah was not going to win the Big 12. Everybody picked Utah. And frankly, I don't think that that's lost yet. I think they're in a much better place moving on from Cam Rising. And I love Cam.
Go thank Baylor for Utah's situation.
I love Cam. I think Cam has been a phenomenal Ute. I think he's been a phenomenal representative of the state of Texas and of college football, but that's over with now. It's over with now. And I think that's much better for this program because Isaac Wilson is somebody that's likable. The team likes him. The team's behind him, and the offense is now going to be built for him. You're not waiting for the guy to come back anymore. Now we find out who Kyle Whittingham in Utah is. And I'm warning you now, if you get Fatu and Reed back, now we're having a conversation. Because Karene Reed has been out for what seems like 70 years. We can go on about this. And Big 12 fan, I understand that you guys have dealt with Utah fan on Twitter, and I apologize for Utah fan on Twitter because they are terrible to deal with.
Seriously.
Utah fan on Twitter is horrendous to deal with.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that Utah's a really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to get their guys back. Guys. Utah is a better at third down efficiency when they play on Friday at 8:30 p.m. when the ball is on the 41-yard line in the south end zone. I would agree.
With a new upper deck.
CNS seating, please.
Yeah.
I didn't pick Utah. Well, that's because you don't know about the Big 12. If you picked anybody but Utah to win this conference, you don't know what you're talking about. If in July and August you picked anybody but Utah to win this conference, you don't know football.
They're going to be like West Virginia when they join and they didn't adjust well. Next comment.
With all due respect,
yeah, dude.
It is this right here that makes you the flyover truck stop food on a roller conference.
Come on, bro.
Anybody who knows football picked Utah to win this conference because everybody's healthy in July, because all things are equal. You've got the best football coach in the conference with the best defense in the conference. And before the season, you had the best quarterback in the conference. So anybody that picked, and Stepanek, I think you're a K-State fan. You don't have a quarterback. You have a running back that plays quarterback. So, come on. Marcus Stuckey. Will Whittingham retire this season? I would seriously doubt it. I doubt that. Big Daddy Magic.
Here we go.
Hey, playa, Utah will beat BYU because I see only one thing I have to enjoy in this horrible college football season. Is too bad it's in the chairs of BYU fans for the rest of the year. Okay.
Cool,
Okay.
man.
Okay. Scam rising isn't the problem for Utah right now. It's their defense. They somehow forgot how to tackle and let Mike Allstott run all over them all night. It's not that they forgot how to tackle. When they haven't been able to stay healthy, which is why they're not as good of a team as they were early in the season, especially when they went to Stillwater, which I think was probably their high water mark now. You're not healthy. And if you can't stay healthy,
Yeah.
it's what I say all the time. Best ability is their availability. So,
And again, I'm just going to say it now. For all the hyenas out here talking junk about Utah, I agree. They're down right now, but stop talking about Kyle Whittingham retiring and start talking about Kyle Whittingham bouncing this team back in the middle of a season. Because that's the kind of coach he is.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is.
I would not be surprised to see Utah finish at 2 losses.
Yeah.
I would not in any way, shape, or form be shocked if they found a way to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And here's Force Ghost Fabio getting his 1 comment a week. Best football coach in a conference was 3 points better than Mike Gundy. Kyle Whittingham is a superior coach to Mike Gundy. And I can only say it what I've said all season. Oak State is not a good football team.
Yeah, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you shouldn't be talking.
You really should.
Your head coach is out here talking about how he headbutted his cattle over the weekend. Like, let's chill out if we're an Oklahoma State fan right now.
I wonder how he had time to headbutt cattle when he was.
Holy cow!
When he was out with Ollie Gordon. Never mind. T. Lawrence Gregson, hi casuals. I did pick K-State to win the Big 12, but hate to see what's happened to Rising. Yeah, I don't know what you have seen. I will just continue to tell you that you can only hide your weaknesses for so long in college football. Did K-State tell you anything this past weekend at Colorado that you didn't already know about them? So without your best 2 wide receivers, you almost lost in Boulder. And what I'm telling you is Avery Johnson has got to prove that he can throw you to a victory. Because it's cool that DJ Giddens dropped Shiloh Sanders in the hole. And Deion Sanders called Shiloh Sanders not good. Said he looked rusty. But if you feel good about what you saw against Colorado, I guess we have different standards.
Yeah.
Fat old Mormon and dying. Gundy is the best coach in the conference. He's a man. He's 40. Exactly.
Sure.
This is a guy who lives on sound bites.
I'm a man.
He lives on sound bites.
So get your facts straight.
Stepanek, never underestimate the K-State coach. I don't underestimate the coach. I underestimate the quarterback. Because he can't throw the football to win a game. It's as simple as that. Geoff, Utah always bounces back. BYU hasn't done that in several years, so you can't count anyone out. I don't disagree with that.
But I will say, I just think with BYU, like the formula is very simple, man. Retzloff has to throw the ball a little bit more accurately. Again, I want to point this out because I agree with you. Yeah, 60%, 61% is not going to be good enough. You got to be 67, 68. But I hope people understand that the difference between on your season being 67, 68 versus 60, 61 is, Darius Lassiter having a horrible half and dropping 7 passes in a row. Like there are throws that Jake needs to make better, but he can make those throws and he's working to make those throws. And again, as long as he avoids the major game-ending turnover, they're going to be fine. And I really... I'm not saying they're winning this conference, but I would be shocked if they lost even half of their games the rest of the way. Like
they're winning with Aaron Rodgers as the play caller.
Yeah.
Who drives me nuts.
Yeah. I can't stand I'm watching the game this past weekend. I'm like, dude, why are we playing behind the line of scrimmage constantly? You've got a gunslinger at quarterback. Push the ball down the field. You've got playmakers at wide receiver.
More than that, you have a lead. God. Run the football. Run the football.
And then what happens? They start running the football and all this good stuff starts happening.
Run the football.
Like,
I think Aaron Rodgers he's a good offensive coordinator. He's not a great play caller, in my opinion.
But even with that taking place, I still love the fact that Jake Retzloff is willing to check to an RPO based on what he sees on the defensive side of the ball. Your quarterback, and I don't care who you play for, if your quarterback has that kind of pre-snap recognition, you're going to be in a better place.
I would agree. Jake Retzloff is 8th in the league in passing. And if you look at the haves and have-nots in this league, it is so all of the K-State fans are like, you don't know what you're talking about. Avery Johnson is 13th out of 16. Only leading Donovan Smith at Houston, Isaac Wilson, who has thrown the football 27 less times, and Jalen Daniels. Like, you have a quarterback problem at K-State. And then I look at the teams that are elite offensively. Shedeur Sanders. Do you guys understand that Shedeur Sanders has attempted, he and Josh Hoover have attempted 237 passes each. Shedeur Sanders has completed 172 passes, which is 10 better than Josh Hoover and 40 better than Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati, who's third. Shedeur Sanders is so far and away better. It's wild to me. He's attempted 237 passes with only 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
He's
special, bro.
The separation of classes in this league at quarterback.
Yeah.
As deep as this league is, you look at Baron Morton. Baron Morton has attempted 221 passes with only 2 interceptions. And he's completing 63% of his passes. And then you look at Jake Retzloff, who's attempted 179 passes and is only completing 60% of his passes.
Yeah. So there's got to be improvement there.
Now he's thrown 5 interceptions on 179. That's not good. But can you imagine if he was completing 65% of his passes, how much better BYU would be? That's the thing that is like, if you could let that sink in and understand that BYU has had such a turnstile on offense, but you look at Taj Brooks, who's the best running back in this league, and I don't think it's close. I think he is far and away the best running back in this league.
Yeah.
And you look at the other guys, Giddens, Scadaboo. I think RJ Harvey is wildly underrated.
Is Ollie Gordon the greatest, fall-off story we've ever seen? Like, legitimately, I'm asking.
I don't know how you explain what's going on with Ollie Gordon.
Like, even in a season where your team's not great, you would expect him to have
3.8 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns.
That's it?
Averaging 64 yards per game.
It's awful.
And you still have not fired the offensive coordinator. Oak State James, who changed his avatar. Thank you. If Oak State makes changes to the O-line, they have a chance of being competitive on Friday. They will play well in 3 quarters and run out of gas due to altitude. Well, usually what happens at altitude is you struggle for the first quarter and a half, and then you kind of get a second wind, and then you come out in the third quarter after halftime and you never really regain your full speed.
Yeah.
Because you kind of, you know how it's like if you've ever been a runner, and I'm not saying that I have ever been a runner, but you know how it is when you're running and you finally feel that break in your lungs and you're able to get through.
Yeah.
But then you go to halftime, you sit and you rest and you come back out and you're never able to fully expand your lungs again. That's tough. That is very tough. Dan Davis, good morning from Eugene. Hello. The eye patch, that's why you're not buying into the TDS. Monty, they're mediocre quarterback. I think Jake Retzloff's not mediocre. I think that Jake Retzloff I think the play calling does nothing to help Jake Retzloff be efficient. I think you've got to find a way. This isn't, understand, you have, I think, he's very clearly, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the state right now. But you have 0 play action ability with this team. They have not even examined or gotten into play action formations. They have not gotten into multiple option RPOs. You've not gotten into, like, if you look at this offense and how it's built at BYU, you're missing an entire offensive package of RPO plays that involve multiple options and the ability to, I don't know, have an inside pitch where you have your Darius Lassiter or whoever your favorite tight end of the week is. Keanu Hill is a great example of this play where he's motioning down the line. Jake takes the snap, turns to his right. You have the flow of the offense going right. Keanu Hill motioning and turns to his right and just pitches to Keanu Hill inside into the A gap. Or the play that we've seen the Chiefs, for instance, Andy Reid, BYU, where Jake turns to his right with a Keanu Hill motioning across the formation from right to left, turns to his right, and you're going to hand off and you pitch it to him. He runs through the A or the B on the far side, on the long side of the field. Like, you haven't seen any of that because you haven't been able to run the football consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because LJ Martin hasn't been available to you.
But what you have seen is Jake Retzloff is excellent in RPO. Understands how to use it.
He is an elite RPO practitioner.
Yeah.
When he is able to pitch that ball at the last possible second. We've seen it with the Miles Davis play against SMU or the play at Baylor, or we've seen it repeatedly. Jake Retzloff's handicap this year has been his inability to deliver the deep ball accurately on a consistent basis. And I think second to that is his lack of touch underneath and behind the linebackers. There's too much zip on the ball, and we see it week in and week out where he won't be on the body, the ball won't be on the body, where a guy can body catch a hard thrown ball, where you have Lassiter with his hands extended, right? Where you're trying to catch a ball with your bottom hand. It's an impossible catch. And if he gets more accurate on the deep ball, and if he's able to just have a little more touch underneath, that's going to get him to 65%. But he hasn't, and he hasn't shown us that yet. And I think that's the next step, the next growth step for Jake Retzloff is now refining those details, because he has largely in the last several weeks limited the bad interception. He has largely limited that. That interception against SMU was clearly a learning point. Clearly a learning point, in my opinion. Bradley Dunkel, Iowa plays the most vanilla, frustrating brand of football. It's effective but horrible to watch. Iowa is not compelling. And if we're not seeing the last of Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, Eric and Raleigh, Iowa is the epitome of, quote, we play to win the game. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I agree. Mayor McCluskey, I totally agree with you guys are saying once the run gets more established, Retzloff will have more space to throw it and open it up. There's a corner of that playbook that he's not using. Aaron Rodgers, the offensive coordinator at BYU.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't been able to create the necessary deception.
I also think you haven't been healthy at running back. So you haven't been, just generally speaking, it's not been a point of emphasis. And, this past week against Arizona, it was absolutely a point of emphasis, and you used it. And I think that, it's what you always talk about, like LJ or whoever back there running it. And if they're just punishing that defense and they're able to get, 4 or 5 yards in the first quarter, and that extends out to 5.5, 6 in the second half, that's what makes it impossible. I mean, if BYU is going to be, and this goes for most football teams, but specifically with Retzloff and BYU, if you're 2nd and 3 with BYU, you're in a world of trouble. They're dropping 35 on you easily.
And I think it's what allowed you to win that K-State game, which I think was probably the coup de grace, because you were able to make big plays. You were able to throw the ball. You were able to create momentum, and K-State can't pass the ball effectively and is not good against the pass.
Mm-hmm. And BYU's defense embraces beating the hell out of your running back. So,
and I look again at the Colorado game this past weekend. K-State couldn't stop the pass. And the numbers, defensive efficiency in the passing game, K-State is 15th in the league, 268 yards a game. Ooh, they're 15th in the league in passing defense efficiency as well. Ooh, man, they're giving up 65% completion rate. I didn't even realize that about K-State. That's surprising. That is surprising. And it's more surprising. Wow, who's the only defense that's given up less than 50% completion percentage in the Big 12? I'm surprised by this. Utah is the only defense in the Big 12 with a sub 50% completed against. I'm surprised by that. BYU's given up 50.9. Utah's given up 49.4. That's kind of crazy. I think Iowa State's the best pass defense in the league, but that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that defense, whatever they have in the pipes in Ames, I just would I want some of that. The stadium guy, James. Okay, now I understand, Monty. I respect Kirk Ferentz. He's similar to Gundy. Okay. Troy Closton. I'm just as concerned with K-State's secondary after that game as I was before that game. Maybe it wasn't a bad thing that some of our defensive backs were getting hurt and backups were getting a shot. Man, I'm telling you, if Horn and Hunter don't go out for Colorado, you guys lose that game. I mean, I think your best attribute against Colorado was you were physical. You were willing to give up receptions to make hits, and it paid off. It paid off. And I think we're all waiting to see what Travis Hunter, what his shape is. That's the best football player in America, in my opinion. If he's out, Colorado's a completely different team, both defense and offense. Because their defense at Colorado, you have to give them credit. That defense is exponentially better. And the offensive line has gotten better. They're still not great, but they've gotten better.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. I think it is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Well, look at that. Another story confirming things we've reported. The Big Ten and the SEC are close to announcing a scheduling agreement. And we reported that last week, and this is Matt Hayes at the USA Today, a former colleague of mine at Sporting News. The people who spoke on the condition of anonymity because of sensitivity of the conversation of the two super conferences could face off in as many as 12 to 16 regular season non-conference games a year or move to determine the extent of the increase in the media rights revenue. As we told you, the Big Ten and the SEC are talking about a scheduling agreement that would mandate only playing P4 opponents and only playing each other.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is your Youngstown State game for Ohio State or Toledo or whoever you want to point to, that all goes away. Alabama ain't playing directional Alabama anymore.
Bro, it's Abilene.
Abilene!
Thank you. Put some respect on their name.
Damn it. I can only tell you so many times that the SEC, Greg Sankey, is not playing around.
Yeah, he ain't playing no games.
He is going to do everything he can do to ensure that they are playing huge television made-for-TV matchups. He's going to
milk the revenue out of every little thing possible.
We are going to see Ohio State, Alabama, USC, Georgia.
Well, what do we have here on ESPN here?
Breaking news presented by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy app in the business. Make sure you use the promo code Monty. Download the app or click the link in the description right here on YouTube right after you hit the thumbs up button, please. Adam Schefter, ESPN. NFL Insider, Devontae Adams and the Raiders working to complete a trade to the New York Jets.
And that still won't fix you giving a game away last night.
But that makes Sauce Gardner a better player.
Yeah.
That makes Aaron Rodgers a better quarterback.
We'll see how long it takes him to get it done.
It'll be done today. If Adam Schefter is confirming that report, That will get done today almost overwhelmingly. And I know that you guys don't care about this, but I can tell you almost for a fact that they don't confirm or report anything that's not close. And when you have an NFL story like this,
Yeah.
they are going. That trade's going to happen today. I can almost guarantee it. It is going to be. Sources are saying it's going to be less than a second round pick. Now, the details of this deal have been that the Raiders have asked for a second round pick and to kick in no cash. And the rub has been that teams, for instance, and such as and like, the New Orleans Saints offered the second round pick but would not pick up Davante's contract. And the New York Jets have offered to pick up the contract, but without a second round pick. I believe they were offering a fourth and a fifth.
Tom Pelissero on Twitter,
NFL Network guy, really good guy,
just tweeted 30 seconds ago, the Jets are sending a 2025 third round pick that can become a second rounder to the Raiders for Davante. New York takes on the rest of Adams' salary to get it done and reunite him with A-Raj. So that appears to be the deal.
Do I get better looking every time I'm right about something? Do I lose a pound? I need to be right a lot more then. Telling you, man.
So there you go.
Yeah, we have.
By the way,
yeah,
I don't want any more excuses for Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to hear that this guy doesn't have enough, or that, oh my God, it was all on Bob or
Bobby. It's not Bob or Rob. It's Bobby Saleh.
I don't want to hear that Bobby S couldn't get it done. And I don't want to hear that Aaron Rodgers is, guy Nathaniel can't hack it, was the reason they lost to the Bills. I'm done with it, dude.
Yep, I agree. Make sure you guys hit the like button as we talk about breaking news in the NFL presented by Prize Picks. It looks like Davante Adams is a New York Jet. Yes, big bad brass balls. First of all, my guy.
Stay hard.
Yeah, nice
Good
to see
you.
Nice to see you, bro.
And your balls look very shiny today.
Very, very nice.
Only 73 thumbs up. Come on, everyone. Thumbs up, okay? Yeah, we're over 3,000 views today.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, big brass balls. People have been unamused with our takes today, so I'm guessing that's,
So it will be a convertible third round pick. If it does not convert to a third round pick, they'll throw in a fifth round pick, and the Raiders will not pay any of Davante Adams' remaining salary.
And what did we hear earlier in the week and over the weekend? Hey, the Raiders are unwilling to pay his salary. So, hey, you got it done.
Yep. Fat old Mormon and dying. Every time Morty is right, he gains a pound of ego.
By the way,
that must be it.
By the way, I'm going to say it for all the assholes in the room.
Oh,
Jerry Jones, you might want to wake up. You might want to start getting involved in league transactions.
It's wild.
Now, this is twice, not once, but twice. You could have had Hall of Fame caliber talent, and you chose not to do it. Stop talking about
King Henry, who is by far the most dominant running back in the NFL this year, because Ashton Ginty is still at Boise State. My guy. Yeah, Boise State fan. Do I not get any credit for... Anyway, Derrick Henry's the best running back in the NFL and wanted to play for the Cowboys. They wouldn't do it. And now Davante Adams, available, you passed. Aaron Rodgers did fine yesterday. You might want to make a field goal. The eye patch. Raiders need to make some moves. They've been horrible for far too long. Mark Davis is a joke. Well, he did bring in Tom Brady as a partial owner, and I am told Tom Brady is no fan of Antonio Pierce.
And they did get Davante Adams, and then they promptly got rid of Derek Carr. So,
boy, how dumb does that move look now?
Like, you're an idiot.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Giggity, remind me, what did Rodgers and Adams win together in Green Bay?
Excellent question.
Nothing. But they never had this defense. And I think we saw last night that this defense can still make plays. And I think we also saw last night, Aaron Rodgers can still throw the football. You got to have some guys hang on to the football in the end zone. because Aaron Rodgers had that game won, and that Mike Williams concussion.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the play at the end of the game where Mike Williams was wide open. Aaron Rodgers slightly underthrew the ball. Rodgers throws it a little short. Mike Williams goes to put his foot in the ground, falls, and then the ball's intercepted to end the game. And you could just see Aaron Rodgers was disgusted by it. Cam Harrison, hello. Morning, guys. Shout out to Mo Bamba. Thank you for the $2. I appreciate that.
Shout out to Mo Bamba.
Always good to see you, my friend. San Diego State Glenn, true that, Jake. No more excuses for AR. Do you want me to drive my Ford Raptor?
Yeah, I'm so sick and tired of all the excuses. People want to call this guy an MVP and then don't want to hold him accountable for literally ruining coaching careers and tearing down franchises in his wake.
Bradley Dunkel, MVP of the league a couple of times.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, Dunkel, bro, I appreciate you.
Single individual award. I agree with that for sure.
The guy can play football. Nobody disputes that. Notice I'm not saying that the guy is a bad quarterback. I'm not saying that.
What did we see out of the Jets last night? A team that has no leadership.
Yeah. They just looked out of sorts. The whole concept, because what did everyone say headed in this game? Oh, well, man, they got a coaching change. They're going to ride high, bounce back game. They're beating a top, AFC team here, like huge night. Now, I'll give you that they had multiple chances to win that ball game. I will give that to you. They were in position and just didn't get it done. So
Hundo P.
You would think theoretically moving forward, now riding the momentum of acquiring Devontae Adams and reuniting these two, you would think that things would start to turn around. But
yeah.
Let's wait to see it on the field.
Yeah, I agree. The stadium guy, James, for $5. I have an idea. Uh-oh. Collectively say it with me. Uh-oh.
I knew today would be shitty.
What if the Big 12 and the ACC make a scheduling agreement? That's a terrible idea.
Bro.
Then Cal and Stanford could play other former Pac-12 teams. SMU plays Baylor and TCU. Yeah, but who are you not playing? Oh, I know the best teams in the country. Yeah, no, we're not going to play. Hey, Texas Tech. It's Chris Del Conte at Texas. Would you guys like to play us? No, screw you. Cal is already on our schedule. You dick. Like, are you out of your mind? Let's make a scheduling thing where we don't play anybody but each other. No.
Hell no.
No. The answer is no. Hey, Oklahoma State. It's Jimmy Nobody door knocker guy at Oklahoma. You want to play us again? No. Coach Gundy's drunk. And did you see his face? He had another argument with a bull last night because his wife kicked him out and he was sleeping in the hayfield.
Real quick. I just need to ask this. ESPN's got Adam Schefter on the tube right now.
Adam Schefter.
Dude looks like he's half asleep standing in the middle of his closet with a suit behind him.
He's in his dressing room. I know exactly
where. Do we
where.
like this?
Yes.
Are we like, can it not wait 5 minutes for him to be in a better spot?
Well, no, you can't. This is breaking news now. I love this. I think it's exactly the right thing for them to be doing. You don't like that at all?
I don't know. I don't know.
Bradley Dunkel last night was on the kicker though. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, he missed field goals. Yeah, he did. The problem is that if you're counting on your kicker kicking field goals in the third quarter to win you a game, you're probably not winning that game, because if he makes those field goals, how much does that change what the Bills are doing and their play calling? And
by the way, if the Bills knew how to defend a Hail Mary, you wouldn't even been in that game.
You don't have the math doesn't 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 here, because, well, if the Jets had made those field goals, Marty, they'd have won the game. They'd have had more points than the Bills. You have no idea if that's the case.
Yeah, the math isn't mathing, dude.
Yeah, not in that situation. I understand what you're saying, but not in that situation. It doesn't.
And by the way, the expectations are so much higher than sitting here, losing by 3 to the Bills.
Yeah, I think. And this is, I go back to, again, I mean, is Aaron Rodgers a problem for the Jets? And I don't know how you don't say he's not a leader. It's not his on-field play that's problematic. Last night, they're not a confident football team. And you just fired Robert Saleh, and that didn't change anything. because you still were stupid in your execution. You didn't catch the football. You didn't do what needed to be done, right? Like it's not accidental. You lost that game in the exact same way that you've been losing games, because firing the coach doesn't change the culture. And Aaron Rodgers needs to be, whether he wants to be or not, he needs to be the culture of that team because he's their biggest name.
Yeah.
And your biggest stars have to be the leaders.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's not. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, period. That's it. And I think he welcomes Davante Adams with open arms because he likes Allen Lazard. Look how many times he targets Allen Lazard.
Yeah.
Here's my question. How does the balance on the score sheet change for a Sauce Gardner with this trade? Ask yourself that question, because Breece Hall is going to keep getting the football. There's no doubt about that. Does a Sauce Gardner, and think about who their best defenders are. An Ashton Davis, does Quinnen Williams get more sacks because Davante Adams is on the team? The answer is no. Look at the box score. Look at what they were able to do. If I look at the team stats in this game, and again, I'm not telling you that the Jets defense was bad last night, but was it elite? No, it was not. And you look at the numbers in this game. Look at the total plays. 60 to 59. No huge gap there. Total yards. The Jets out-yarded the Bills by 40 yards. The defense needed to make a play.
I also think, though, in fairness to them, when you theoretically, right, because we got to see this pan out for the Jets, but assuming these two can just turn it on and the chemistry is right back to where it was, it should be. You would think that if you're scoring more points that you're going to be ahead in more games, which is going to help guys like Sauce, be better defenders. And it's going to put you in positions where, as a defensively, when you're putting together a scheme and a game plan and you're making situational play calls, Sauce isn't going to always have to be playing press covers the whole game. Like he can, if you're up by 10, that helps.
It is the Javon Kinlaws. Again, I'll go to Quinnen Williams. Plays a great game, misses a critical tackle.
Yeah. Which, again, then maybe that's the best point. Quinnen Williams misses a critical tackle that all of a sudden is way less critical because you're up by 10 because you have Davante. You know what I mean?
And I get it. Josh Allen's tough to bring down. Very tough to bring down.
Yeah, but you got to have that.
You got to have that sack.
Yeah, you got to have that.
And then you look at the balance of this offense, and I think you've got to use Breece Hall more. Now the nice thing is you're going to throw it to him less, because Davante Adams, I still think he can play. Here's the big question about Davante Adams: can he still be a guy?
Yes.
Can he still be a dog? Because they
100%.
need a number one wide receiver. Allen Lazard's not a number one.
Yeah, I don't believe, my opinion is this is not a Davante conversation. I think Davante Adams has loads of juice left in the tank. I think this guy, you're reinvigorating Davante Adams. You're saying to Davante Adams, hey, we believe in you so much that we're bringing you here. And if you're Davante, you were essentially in NFL hell with the Raiders, with all due respect to the Raiders. Like, if
you're throwing that ball to Davante Adams instead of Mike Williams, is it an interception?
No. You're never. But see, the difference is that Davante is open 10 yards earlier. That's the difference. He's beating his guy soundly, routinely.
I would agree with that.
And Aaron doesn't have to bomb it that far because he's already got it to him. And so I just think, look, I think that Davante Adams, now is on a mission. This is your last best chance, in my opinion, to go out and win a Super Bowl, because Aaron Rodgers has 2 years left, maybe.
I would agree with that.
This and one more, maybe.
What does this do to Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, and then you've got the Garrett Wilson,
who finally had a great game last night.
Yeah, so
and he drops that touchdown when he got popped in the end zone.
Again, great football teams, great offenses have 2 1 and 1A receivers. Again, Jerry Jones, take your notepad out. Hey, you've got 1 and 1A on opposite sides of the formation, and you've got Breece Hall in the backfield. That triangle, if you will, that trio, just opens your playbook exponentially. It just makes it so that, again, all jokes aside, when Nathaniel Hackett and company are creating a game plan, they can say, okay, cool, we're playing these guys. Who they got next on their schedule? Who are they playing next?
The Jets.
Yeah, the Jets. Who we got
the
next?
Jets have they're at the Steelers. That's
Okay,
right. That's
so-
Sunday Night Football.
So great example. Steelers have a solid defense, known for tough team, like Tom
Getting after the
team,
quarterback.
right? So if you're playing a team that's trying to get after A-Rod, well, what are you going to do? Well, you're gonna create a game plan that's got a bunch of 10-yard concepts in it for your wide receivers,
A lot of
so you can
screens.
get the ball out. A lot of
screens.
screenplay, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like that's why this thing with Devontae to the Jets makes so much sense. It's not just the Aaron Rodgers connection, although that's the impetus. But the layers to it are, hey, you're making your young wide receiver over here better. You're making the total offensive balance better.
And I think maybe the question we should ask is, can they win this division still? I think the answer is yes, if their defense gets better. Because I think I wasn't, it's not like I was blown away by Buffalo last night.
right.
This was a really good test for Buffalo, and I don't know, I wouldn't say they passed with flying colors.
No, that's a C+, B- performance out of Buffalo.
I would agree with that. I think it is. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Jets turn into here, because their schedule is going to be notably easier here coming up. At the Steelers, at the Patriots, Texans, at home, Sunday Night Football on Halloween night, or Thursday Night Football on Halloween night, at the Cardinals, Colts, Seahawks, at the Dolphins, at the Jaguars, Rams, at the Bills, Dolphins.
Yeah.
That's an easy schedule.
Yeah.
That is a win the division schedule. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills, listen to what the Bills have to do. Titans at the Seahawks, so that they're going to go all the way across the country.
Yeah.
Right? Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs, Niners at the Rams, at the Lions, Patriots, Jets at the Patriots.
So still got another shot at the Jets.
The division is wide open.
Yeah.
Division is wide open. All right. Adam Schefter, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams together in Green Bay. Devontae Adams had 622 catches, 7,590 yards, and 69 touchdowns. They like each other.
Yeah.
They have
That's what I'm saying.
chemistry.
The chemistry is going to be there.
Yes.
That's hardly the question. The chemistry is going to be. You're going to. I'm telling you, Jets. This first game with these two is must-watch TV. You have to see. Okay, obviously the chemistry will be there, but I want to see how the Jets use him to open the offense up. How do you use him to make that Pittsburgh defense suffer? How do you use him to open Breece Hall up for 5-6 yards of carry? Like, those are the things I know.
More
that
first downs.
I know that A-Rod can throw the football to Devontae Adams. That's not rocket science. Your mom could tell us that. Like, I want to see how the Jets
She
evolve and grow. Yeah, she can.
I would agree. I think you look at some of the numbers on this Jets game last night. Third down efficiency, 5 of 11. I think you get better with Devontae Adams at that. I think you of the 20 first downs you have, 10 and 12 passing, 5 running, 4 of 12 on third down. I mean, I just think it makes you better. It makes you better in big moments.
Yeah.
Because Devontae's not going to have the Mike Williams meltdown. If that was Devontae last night, that pass is knocked down. And it's probably incomplete. It's definitely not intercepted.
I also think Devontae by nature brings this sort of organization to the offense. Garrett Wilson is a phenomenal wide receiver, hugely talented.
Yeah.
Is not yet, in my opinion, a number one, only because he hasn't been in the league long enough and just doesn't quite have that get off yet.
They were 1 of 4 in the red zone last night.
That changes.
That gets better.
Yeah.
That gets better.
So
I agree. Huge news. Devontae
again,
Adams traded to the New York Jets for a 3rd round pick that can be upgraded to a 2nd. The Raiders do not pay the remaining portion of Devontae Adams' contract. Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers are back together in New York, and I think it is a game changer, because I still maintain that, speaking of Buffalo, Buffalo wanted Devontae Adams and couldn't get him.
yeah, I was going to say, if you're a Cowboy fan, I'd be pissed.
You're a Cowboy fan. If you are a Bills fan, I mean, I think if you're any contender,
I wouldn't be upset if you're a 49er fan. I just don't think that was something that they were going to.
No, you're not going to make that move. But it definitely is one of those things where you're separating yourself between the good and the good and the bad here.
Yeah.
And this is a move. And as much as you can hate Woody Johnson, the guy is spending the money that needs to be spent to win a championship.
Yeah.
And I think that it is incumbent on Aaron Rodgers to design an offense that can win them games. Because and I know it's crazy and everybody rips me for it, but I just don't think that defense is elite. It's really good. They need to be elite. Sauce has got to. I mean, I understand they don't throw at him a lot, and I wouldn't either. But when he gets a chance, he's got to make plays.
Yeah.
He's got to make interceptions. They've got to get takeaways.
Yes.
It's huge. In my opinion, it's huge. The Monty Show is always presented by the Advocates at theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business are theadvocates.com. Oh, look at that. Georgia Tech is moving to the Mercedes-Benz Dome next season.
Nice, dude.
There you go. More money making. I wonder what that lease agreement looks like. The Advocates at theadvocates.com. Back tomorrow. Back and better than ever. I don't know. There you go. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.